Live-action puppetry is an art form that's rarely used for mainstream cinema nowadays, but it has a charm and magic to it, a tangibility that makes us believe in a physical presence. However, many assume that puppetry is limited to Thunderbirds or Jim Henson's The Muppets and Sesame Street, when really, puppetry is a very broad filmmaking technique that encompasses not just marionette and hand, but also motor mechanics, bodysuit acting, and remote control animatronics. In this show, I will highlight the best and the worst that puppet cinema has to offer, but trying to keep an open mind about what I count as puppetry. Because when it comes down to it, live-action puppetry is the art of bringing an inanimate object to life while a camera rolls. Welcome, one and all, to the world of Puppet Panic. Howdy folks, Jamboree here. Whether he likes it or not, George Lucas can be seen as one of the major pioneers of puppet filmmaking. No matter how many times he tries to cover the puppets up with CGI in his special edition cuts. And with the recent release of the newest Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker, I thought I would talk about a film that many consider to be the best Star Wars movie. Since the events of A New Hope, Luke, Han, Leia, C-3PO, Chewbacca and R2-D2 are now hiding out in a rebel base on the ice planet of Hoth. But when Darth Vader finally tracks them down, everyone must evacuate. While Luke ventures to the Dagobah system to be trained by the Jedi Master Yoda in preparation for fighting Vader, everyone else heads to a city in the clouds, which is looked over by the charismatic Lando Calrissian, an old friend of Han's. Unfortunately, it turns out that Vader got to the city first, made a deal with Lando, and plans to use the city's carbon freezer to trap Luke for the Emperor. A central focus of this film is Luke's training with Yoda, a big step for Luke's journey into becoming a Jedi Knight. Most scenes like this are usually abridged down to being a quick montage, but this film shows a far grittier and more time-consuming take on training. This helps us to buy that Luke is having to put in a lot of effort into improving, as the movie lets us see the pain, hardship and sweat that's going into his growth. This isn't some cute practice sequence, it's a boot camp on a swamp planet, and Luke is having to really push himself. Luke doesn't simply hop from one task to another either, he's learning that his journey has obstacles, and he has flaws that are stopping him from reaching his full potential. He must overcome his patience, lack of faith and quick temper if he wants to become a Jedi Master.
I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
The movie even explores the moral psychology of Luke by putting him through a spiritual vision in which he enters a cave, confronts Darth Vader, strikes his enemy down, and then sees himself in Vader's mask. I guess you could interpret this vision many ways, but I think it's trying to say that Luke would be no better than the villain if he killed Vader. Luke needs to abandon his feelings of revenge towards Darth Vader, or he'll end up on the same path to the dark side. This is the main lesson that Luke has to take away by the end of the movie. That while self-defense can be justified, violence shouldn't be the default resolution for defeating evil. Yoda himself isn't just an eccentric mentor for Luke, he's living proof that being a great Jedi doesn't mean looking like a conventional warrior, due to his short height, a cane in his hand, and a wrinkly old appearance. Taming the Force is a skill that transcends athletic ability. It's mainly about one's relationship with the environment around them, so of course Yoda would excel at it.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us.
When Luke senses that his friends are going to be in great danger, he decides to go save them, which frightens Yoda and the spirit of Obi-Wan, who insists that he has to train more. On the one hand, I get why Luke is adamant to rescue his loved ones, but I also understand why his mentors are worried, especially when they know a secret that's being kept from Luke. Meanwhile, Han, Leia, Chewbacca and the droids are in the City of the Clouds, where Lando has charmed them into feeling secure. It's hard to deny Lando's natural charisma. The guy speaks with a regal command, but also walks with a cool swagger. So I can see why our heroes are somewhat trustworthy of Lando, even if a part of them is cautious due to Lando's criminal history. This is why Lando's portrayal hurts our hero so much. They put their lives in his hands, with him knowing full well how vulnerable they were at this time. But to be fair, Lando's decisions don't come from a bad place. He's being overpowered by Vader and feels as if there's not much he can do. However, as the film goes on, Lando's conscience is challenged and he begins to realise the errors of his decisions. The interesting thing about Lando is that he's not a straightforward hero or villain, he's a fine line between both, and seeing how much pain he's causing is what helps him sway more towards his heroic side. The film also develops the romance between Leia and Han. The relationship has always been argumentative and defensive, but this was of course a sign of subtextual sexual tension, letting their underlying attraction towards each other be translated into aggressive banter.
Well, Your Highness, guess this is it.
That's right.
Don't get all mushy on me. So long, Princess.
The cute appeal of their feelings for each other is how stubborn they're both being. Leia won't admit that she's got the hots for a scruffy scoundrel like Han, but Han won't confess that he's smitten by Leia's bold, strong will. They're teasing of each other, acting as denial over their blatant chemistry. Their style of flirting is unconventional, but faithfully consistent to their characters. This is exactly how each of them would address such complex feelings, making it all the more satisfying when they break the barrier between them and just go for it. The best demonstration of how their romance functions once finally expressed is when Vader plans to freeze Han in carbonite.
I love you.
I know.
This is exactly how a smarmy, smug space criminal would respond to someone saying "I love you." Anything else would be a disservice to Han's character. I'm sure fans wouldn't like me to ignore how this is the first Star Wars movie to feature Boba Fett too. A bounty hunter hired by Darth Vader that's become a fan favourite. While I get that people find him cool because he's quite the badass and you can't see his face, I can't personally say that I'm a huge fan myself. I don't dislike him, but I also don't love him as much as everyone else does. Yeah, his neutral stance in the war, mysterious presence, and unique armor costume make him stand out, but I don't find him that compelling as a character in this movie. He plays his part in the film's story, sure, but that's it really. I just see him as a cool villain's henchman and nothing more. Without a doubt, the major highlight of this film is the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader, a crucial part of the Star Wars saga and a fitting climax to the movie. The best swordplay sequences are choreographed with a sense of storytelling in mind. They're not just an excuse for the stunt coordinator to show off their skills or just a fancy exhibition of perfect swordsmanship. This duel is oozing with tension but also has so much substance to it, with every stage of the fight playing into the film's narrative. Notice how Luke is confident when swinging, swishing his saber like someone who has dabbled with the art, but there are also moments where he fumbles, falls, and even trembles. This is to indicate that while Luke has vastly improved, he's still a Jedi in training, so he's not that smooth. While Vader needs to prepare Luke for becoming a Sith for the Emperor, by seducing him into the dark side and weakening him enough to make it easy to freeze him in carbonite. So he has to retain this balance of overpowering Luke and making the dark side seem attractive. Of course, the most memorable part of this duel is one of the greatest reveals in cinema history.
I am your father.
It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
I know everyone knows this scene and it's ripe for parody, but really let this moment sink in. Imagine if your sworn enemy was really your parent, the person who's supposed to protect and love you. Put yourself in Luke's shoes in this scene. This isn't a twist for the sake of a twist. It's meant to subvert the simple hero and villain relationship that's already been established, changing the good versus evil dynamic of the franchise into something much deeper and more emotionally complicated. From this point on, Star Wars isn't just about trying to save the universe. It's also about Luke confronting his father and attempting to rescue him from the dark side, something that would be further explored in the next chapter. However, I think it's also vital to praise the scene that follows this one, as Luke becomes conflicted between Darth Vader's real identity and the fact that his mentor hid this fact from him. Luke seems so messed up, his whole world has been turned upside down and he doesn't know who to trust anymore. It's a powerful moment that's often clouded by the notoriety of the "I'm your father" scene. Anyway, I think it's time that we talk about the movie's puppetry. The star puppet of this film is Yoda himself, voiced and puppeteered by Frank Oz. Now, Oz is best known for playing such Muppets as Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear, so it was a huge risk to cast him as such an integral and noble character as Yoda. If this backfired, George Lucas would have totally regretted portraying Yoda as a puppet. This is the amazing thing about Frank Oz. He's such a skilled voice actor and puppeteer that his talents exceed his comedic roots, and he brought a dramatic integrity to Yoda. We forget that it's Miss Piggy behind this puppet, because Oz embraces the character's personality and mannerisms. The way he walks with his cane, the slow nuance of his physical gestures, and the quiet subtleties behind his line deliveries all help to sell Yoda's wise old alien shtick.
I won't fail you. I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
At the same time though, Yoda does have a cheeky side, so Oz is able to bring his Muppet background in to show Yoda's appeal in terms of comic relief.
I don't want your help. I want my lamp back. I'm gonna need it to get out of this slimy mud hole.
Mud hole? Slimy? My home this is!
R2, let him have it.
Mine!
R2!
This movie also features a wide array of space creatures, many of which are performed with puppets. The puppeteers are having to bring a natural, organic touch to the monsters and animals, playing their part in building the world of Star Wars. Sometimes, for wide-angle shots, stop motion is used for a few creatures, but puppetry is still an important tool for each beast. Now, I do think it's important to remember that puppetry isn't just about shoving your hand inside a latex character and flapping your hands about. It's an art form that's broader than that. So I would like to count Chewie, C-3PO and R2-D2 as puppets too. Yes, that's possibly a controversial thing to state, but they do fit the criteria for what I count as puppetry in this review series. Peter Mayhew puppeteers Chewbacca with his body and jaw. He's not just a tall guy in a fur suit, he's an actor who is applying realistic animal-like quirks and traits to the Wookiee. It was apparently really hard to puppeteer Chewie's mouth too, because Peter would get sore from pushing the mask's mechanics with his own jaw, so kudos to him for biting through the pain. Anthony Daniels gives C-3PO a believable robotic movement while also retaining the character's posh personality, letting his body puppeteer the droid with an eccentric yet stiff elegance.
Sir, it's quite possible this asteroid is not entirely stable.
Finally, Kenny Baker, who pilots R2-D2, puts in an underrated performance, using mechanical puppetry to give the little droid a whimsical and fun character. It takes intense talent to give likeable charisma to a character without a recognizable face. But that's the magic of Kenny's puppeteering, although additional credit should be given to the animatronic crew too. To conclude, The Empire Strikes Back may seem unremarkable when looking back now, as a lot of its tropes have been repeated again and again in other Hollywood movies. But this film still needs to be praised for doing these certain things for the first time, taking that huge leap and excelling. This is more than just a great Star Wars movie, it's also an important part of cinema history. I've been Jamboree, and I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, then feel free to like, subscribe and share. Also, please consider supporting me by making a monthly pledge to my Patreon in return for awesome rewards. Thank you. So, what am I going to be reviewing in the next episode of Puppet Panic? Well, this will be a brand new season, a special season. You see, for a long time, ever since I created Puppet Panic, people have been asking me to do the Chucky movies. I thought, why not do them all? That's right, next year I'm going to dedicate an entire season to the Chucky movies, starting with the Child's Play trilogy. Cheerio, folks.